Eternals. Hello everyone, I sound like shit, I look like shit, bad cold, it is that time of year. But yeah, Eternals didn't do this to me. I was like this before Eternals, okay? So the movie wasn't that bad. Anyway, Eternals, this is the newest from the MCU. I've never heard of them, probably like most people. We're getting to that point with the MCU where all these new movies are pretty much characters we've never heard of, and they're just new territory, and we don't really know anything about them. Such as Shang-Chi and this, because they've kind of used all the characters everyone knows about, so now we're getting into this new stuff. Now, the Eternals are immortal beings, hence their name Eternals, and they've been around for a long time. Something like 7,000 years they've been on Earth, and each possess similar powers, but different powers. Like, all their powers sort of look the same, like color and stuff, but they all sort of have it shaped to, suit them in a different way. Now, in this movie, the Eternals are under threat from these things called Deviants, which they hunt. They've been hunting them on Earth for a while, and now the Deviants are back. These are not to be confused with the Deviants from the Loki TV show. I believe that's what they called people that have broken the rules, like a deviant, or they definitely use the word deviant in there, but no, these are like big monsters and stuff. So yeah, they need to hunt them, and along the way, other problems and foes, sort of appear up that are more of a problem than just these deviants. And of course, it is your cliche thing: things are at risk, and eventually it becomes a big deal. So, oh my god, it's not just the Eternals at risk; it's the entire world. So the Eternals need to save the day. Now, this film did a pretty decent job of balancing all these characters. I think there's like maybe 7 or 8 Eternals, so it's a fair bit. But the film was long. It was like 2 hours 30, 2 hours 40, so it had enough time to split the screen time up between all these characters, and to be honest, the film did feel that long. It did feel like a 2.5 hour movie. And I found myself clock watching, I'm afraid. I was looking at my watch like, okay, we've done half hour, we've done another 15, alright, we're at an hour and a half, we're at an hour 45, I don't like doing that, but with this, it did feel long. It did feel long, and you kind of just wonder where you're at. And all these characters, to be fair, are pretty likable. There was like a variety here. It did kind of feel like they were a family. It did feel like they were a group. There was good chemistry there. Some of them were a little bit cringe, I'm not going to lie. Some of the stuff they come out with, some of the things they do. And to be honest, majority of the jokes didn't land, really. It's kind of your cliche Marvel humour. Some of it lands, and it's just like very forced. It felt very forced. It felt like that's not really something someone would say. It didn't feel all that natural. But some of them did actually land. Some of them were pretty funny. And these funny moments, mostly, I would say, came from, or like the funniest ones, came from Kumail Nanjiani. Hope I'm saying that right. He was really good in this movie. I don't think I've seen him in anything else before, but he was funny as well. And same with Brian Tyree Henry. I've seen him in a few things before, and I'm a big fan of him. I like to see him in more stuff, so it's nice to see him in here. I thought he was really funny at times. He was sort of your comedy relief character, along with Kumail, but they both did a good job here. But for me, the best performance here was Richard Madden, and that's not exactly the most surprising after seeing him in Game of Thrones, how good he was in that show. He was really good again here. He really stood out. It was a very dedicated performance. He brought a lot of emotion to his character, some depth to him, and he was definitely the most interesting for me because he had that something different about him. He had that, just that aura around him that there was something about him. And whilst we don't really have a super main character, probably the one that got the most screen time, along with Madden, was the character played by Gemma Chan. She was very good too. I don't think I've seen her in anything else before. I'm pretty sure I haven't, but she was good. She was very solid as well. And she's a character you do kind of root for, not as much as Madden, but she did a good job. And yeah, as a team, it was pretty cool. I mean, when they do like sort of team up and put their like superhero outfits on, it's a bit questionable. They kind of look like Power Rangers. I wasn't a huge fan of the design of the suits, and it's kind of cliche, but oh well, it's not a big deal. When it came to their powers, it was a bit messy and confusing at times, I'm not going to lie, because it kind of came down to what they could do with their powers and what they couldn't do with their powers. It didn't really make much sense where the limits were. And alongside that, what did damage to them and what didn't do damage to them. It just, altogether, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. It kind of just felt like the writing for this movie was just letting the powers do whatever the powers needed to do for that particular scene, for them to overcome a certain thing, or for a certain character to lose a battle, for a certain character to win a battle. Like, okay, the power's going to do this for this battle, and they're going to win. But in this next battle, it's not going to do this, and they're gonna take this damage in this one, but not in this one. You know, it felt like they were just, okay, yeah, let's just fucking, okay, we need this to happen to this character, so let's just adjust what their power ends up doing in that scene. It just felt like there weren't any rules, any boundaries to these powers. And some of these powers felt a little bit copycatish, I'm not gonna lie. Like, Richard Madden, if you've seen the trailer, he is basically Superman. He's Superman. He flies and he shoots lasers from his eyes. He's Superman, pretty much. They even make a reference. It's like, oh, you're Superman. It's like, Jesus Christ, guys. Like, fucking at least try and make it seem like you came up with something here. One of the characters is basically the Flash, super fast, all this stuff. And then the rest, there's some pretty cliche ones. Like, you got one who's like, you know, can punch really far. One can, like, shoot, you know, bolts. It's kind of like Iron Man, but without a suit. You've got one that can do mind control. You've got one that can go invisible and do illusions and stuff. It's just like, I felt like these powers lacked imagination. I know they're from a comic book that was written time and time and time ago, but it just didn't feel very imaginative, to be honest. But I gotta say, despite me clock watching, like I said, you know, looking at the time, the film did keep me invested, and I was curious as to how it was going to turn out. And in the final act, it felt like the story was actually going a certain way that I didn't expect. It felt like it was going to give me a surprising final act, a surprising outcome, you know, a non-cliche ending. And I did find myself rooting for a character that I guess could be considered a villain. I'm not going to say who that was, but, you know, you kind of find yourself, it's like, I kind of want the villain to come out on top here, because it would just be more interesting. I want to see chaos. You know, I want to see some sort of chaos at the end of this film, so that when they make a sequel, it's not like, oh yeah, everything ended perfectly in the last one, they're good to go now. Like, I want to see something chaotic. However, this is the MCU we're talking about, so you do get your cliche MCU Marvel ending. I mean, to be honest, the only surprising things that have ever happened in the MCU was Thanos winning, and even that was in the comics, everyone knew about that, and Spider-Man's identity being revealed. That is probably the biggest surprise in the MCU. Apart from that, nothing really stands out for shocking things that happen in the MCU movies. There's nothing more to say, really, apart from this movie inevitably ends how you think it's going to end. Like, obviously, you can't say exactly what's going to happen, but you have a feeling, I think this will happen. This is my sort of broad view. I think this is pretty much how it will end, and you would be right. And this did leave me somewhat disappointed, because the film had me quite optimistic and excited in the build-up in this final third act. I did think we were going to get that different, exciting outcome, which we've barely had, apart from Infinity War and Far From Home, to be honest. And, you know, Civil War, in a sense, too. You know, just endings that aren't happy, alright? Or endings that aren't fulfilling, and, you know, everyone wins. It's just like endings that leave you a bit like, whoa, I did not think they would be brave enough to do that. But they did it. But they didn't hit. Another problem with the ending as well, I'm talking a lot about the ending, but another problem is hardcore Marvel fans that know about comics and know about the Eternals before all this, and, you know, just know all these things, they're going to get excited about this, because they're going to know what the hell is going on. They're going to know what it means when certain things show up, when certain things are said. They're going to know. Me, my Marvel knowledge just spans movies, alright? That's pretty much all there is to it. I don't look outside of it. So when you see certain things at the end of the movie and in end credit sequences, which I'm not going to spoil because I didn't understand them anyway, but things show up, characters show up, and you're just kind of like, I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what this means. I don't know what any of this means. This is completely new territory to me, so it's just whoosh, straight over my head. For me, essentially the last 15 minutes of the movie and the two end credit sequences pulled this movie down when it was at a decent spot, because I thought it was a good spot. It finally got to a good point, you know, lots of build up, which was, you know, good at times, not so good at times. Gets to the point and you're thinking, okay, this is where it could really push for the jugular. No, not for me. Got confusing. It went to the cliche ending, and then end credit sequences were confusing as well, so I just didn't know what was going on, and that in turn dropped the movie for me. In terms of where this ranks for MC movies, it's in the okay to decent, like, sort of category. I would say this is similar to Shang-Chi, although I can't remember what I rated that. I don't know if it'll line up with this rating, but, you know, it's kind of that similar thing where it's like, it's probably worth watching if you're invested in the MCU, as these characters are very likely to reappear. They even say at the end, like, the Eternals return, blah, 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 no spoilers. But, you know, it kind of thinks, like, these characters will come back. You know, you're going to see at least some of these characters again. Or maybe all of them, I don't know. And, you know, they're also trying to set up stuff here as well. You know, introducing new characters, you know, throughout in particular moments or end credit sequences. So, it's probably worth watching for that aspect of it. But would I rewatch this? I really don't think so, especially not with this runtime. When it comes to rewatching stuff, it's mainly like the Captain America movies and the Avengers movies and the Spider-Man movies. Maybe like Doctor Strange, Black Panther, like a bit of Thor, Ragnarok, of course, thrown in there. But apart from that, everything else is quite sort of, you watch once, you're like, it was okay. Like, they don't really make bad movies anymore, Marvel, not so bad. Obviously, I wasn't a fan of the Natasha Romanoff movie, Black Widow, but, they don't make anything god-awful. But this is once again just another average MCU movie, and, Scorsese had a point. They're just sort of pumping these things out, just pumping them out, pumping them out, pumping them out. It's like, where's the quality at? You get like one standout MCU movie like every 5, it seems. The next one is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home, for sure. That's easily going to be the best. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. But either way, I've sort of gone off on a tangent here. The point I'm trying to make is, this is an average movie, probably worth watching if you're into the MCU. Not huge if you miss it. You could just be told some things. Probably worth watching, though. But I would not rewatch. But it is a decent movie, and it's not as bad as certain reviews are seeing. You're seeing like Rotten Tomatoes with like 55%. I think that's harsh. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's awful. I think it did actually have some good moments. I did stay interested, but ultimately it just doesn't hit the landing. And I was hoping it would. I'm hoping it'd do something different, but it just sort of follows that same formula. So for me, Eternals gets a 6.5 out of 10. And if you go to Cineworld, they might have a poster for you as well. I put it under the bed. I might put it up. I don't know. It's not really an iconic enough film for me to put on the wall, but they do have a poster, so, get a poster as well. But yeah, that was it for Eternals. The next MCU movie is Spider-Man No Way Home. Very, very, very excited. That's the big one. That's the jugular. That's the one we've all been waiting for. But yeah, we've got a couple more movies coming out this month. I'm talking very fast. I hope you like the new style. I'm joking. I don't know why I'm talking fast. But yeah, that was it. I'm kind of hyper right now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.